Welcome to the Washington Ethical Society. I'm Rajesh Vidyasagar and my pronouns are he, him, and I'm the officiant today. Welcome to everybody on our hybrid platform, whether you're here in the hall, welcome doubly, otherwise watching on Zoom or catching the recording later. We are one community unified across time and space as we gather to affirm our values and commit to a better world. If you're on Zoom, please check in the chat for a welcome and various tips from today's Zoom chat usher. I think it's Judy O. Visitors, if you are here in person, please stop by the welcome table after platform today to speak to a greeter or to our membership coordinator, Maceo Thomas. Those of you visiting online now or later, we invite you to send an email to Maceo at maceot, M-A-C-E-O-T, at ethicalsociety.org, or fill in a connection form, which you can find at tiny.cc/Wes I'll now check the chat and see if there are messages that we can read to each other. One moment. Okay. Judy Myers says hi, and she's the Zoom usher. Robin, checking on sound. Let's see now. Cynthia Goodman says good morning to everyone on this beautiful fall day. And I'm sure more will flow in as we continue. It's good to connect and to share our time together. Opening words for this morning are from Craig Santos Perez. Before we enter the jungle, my dad asks permission of the spirits who dwell within. He walks slowly with care to teach me, like his father taught him, how to show respect. Then he stops and closes his eyes to teach me how to listen. Ekungok, as the winds exhale and billow the canopy, tremble the understory, and conduct the wild orchestra of all breathing things. Our opening music today is Hollow Bamboo by Katie O'Grady and team.
Before all else, we give a thanks to creation. Before all else, we list our blessings, Lord. Before all else, we rise as many nations. All eyes on what is done, our minds as one. Agradezco a la tierra, al cielo, las hierbas sagradas, al agua fluyendo y clara, las criaturas que vuelan, que nadan, hermanas de la vida, parecidas a nosotros nos inspiran. ¿Quién puede pararnos si estamos unidos? ¿Y quién puede callar nuestra canción? ¿Y quién puede vivir sin este planeta? Levantamos, somos testigos de la destrucción. Before all else, we give a thanks to creation. Before all else, we list our blessings, Lord. Before all else, we rise as many nations. All eyes on what is done, our minds as one. All eyes on what is done, our minds as one.
Welcome once again. Each week we read our statement of purpose as a reminder of our shared values. I'll read it today, and I love doing so, but it really connects me with what we're doing here together. But anyone can sign up to read the statement, and I'd encourage you to do so if you're interested at tiny.cc/read-SOP. And I notice that there are plenty of open slots on the schedule, so I invite you to consider taking a turn. Our senior leader, Casey Slack, will now light our community candle. As they do so, I invite those of you with candles at home to light yours, and for everyone to join in our candle lighting words. I'm going to. Sorry, I missed that. Forgive me. Thank you so much, Perry. I have a small problem here that I don't have the statement of purpose right here. And I've lost my purpose. But if it is showing up there on the screen, is it? One moment, it's coming up. The words. With faith in human goodness, we appreciate each person's unique capacities. We joyfully celebrate together and support each other through life. We nurture a sense of reverence and responsibility for each other and the earth. We warmly invite you to join our community of children and adults as we work for a world where love and justice cross all borders. Okay, now Perry, if I may. May we kindle within us the warmth of compassion, the light of understanding, and the fire of commitment to build a brighter future for all. Over now to Casey for our story this week, which is We Are Water Protectors by Carol Lindstrom with illustrations from Michaela Goad.
Thank you, Rajesh. And like I always say, it's not Sunday if nothing goes wrong. So as Rajesh mentioned, our story this week is We Are Water Protectors, going with our monthly social justice theme of Indigenous history and activism. Water is the first medicine, Nokomis told me. We come from water. It nourished us inside our mother's body as it nourishes us here on Mother Earth. Water is sacred, she said. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. The river's rhythm runs through my veins, runs through my people's veins. My people talk of a snake that will destroy the land, spoil the water, poison plants and animals, wreck everything in its path. When my people first spoke of the black snake, they foretold that it wouldn't come for many, many years. Now the black snake is here. Venom burns the land, courses through the water, making it unfit to drink. Take courage. I must keep the black snake away from my village's water. I must rally my people together. To stand for the water, to stand for the land, to stand as one against the black snake. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. It will not be easy. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. The winged ones, the crawling ones, the four-legged, the two-legged, the plants, trees, rivers, and lakes. The earth. We are all related. Tears like waterfalls stream down tracks down my face, tracks down my people's faces. Water has its own spirit, Nokomis told me. Water is alive. Water remembers our ancestors who came before us, she said. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. We are stewards of the earth. Our spirits have not been broken. We are water protectors. We stand. The black snake is in for the fight of its life. The end. That is our story for today about the water protectors, the indigenous people who work so hard, and their allies who work so hard to help keep our land and water and wild things safe from the black snake, which is our cultural obsession with oil. Thank you.
Let's enter now into the centering time of our platform. Each week we ring this chime in solidarity with people around the world. Today, as the news cycle whirls away to new attention-grabbing news, I continue to be mindful of the people affected by Hurricanes Ian and Fiona and the tragedy that is unfolding in Pakistan, those who've lost homes, friends, family, and are hungry. As we listen to the chime, let us remember our connection to each other and the world around us. Let us open our hearts to compassion for those who suffer. And let us commit ourselves to the work that calls for our love. Casey will now lead us in meditation.
I invite you to take a big, deep breath, if that feels good for you, to find yourself settled in your seat, to get comfortable in whatever way is best for you. For some of us, that is sitting in the chair with our feet flat on the floor. For others, it is with our legs crossed. Maybe you need to stretch a little bit. If you're gonna stretch, be mindful of if you have neighbors. Give yourself a moment to simply arrive here, in this moment that we have together, this moment of connecting and thinking and feeling as a community. We can find ourselves in a rushing stream, information flooding into us, bad things, bad things, bad things, bad things. It is hard to take time to stop. So I invite you to take this time just to breathe and be in your body. Not necessarily to think about anything in particular. To let your thoughts bubble up, be noticed, and set aside. When you notice something coming to your mind, something stressful, something from your to-do list, something you saw in the news this week, or something you have to do this coming week, notice it, set it aside. Its time is not right now. Right now is for breathing. Right now is for resting. Right now is for feeling yourself as one human among many interconnected humans. One life among many interconnected lives. Continue to breathe slowly if that feels good for you. Noticing your thoughts and letting them go. Continue in this practice as we share some silent time together. And as we hear our meditation music for the day.
We are hollow bamboo, open
The reading today is from the Land Back Collective Manifesto. It is the reclamation of everything stolen from the original peoples: land, language, ceremony, food, education, housing, healthcare, governance, medicines, kinship. It is a relationship with Mother Earth that is symbiotic and just, where we have reclaimed stewardship. It is bringing our people with us as we move towards liberation and embodied sovereignty through an organizing, political, and narrative framework. It's a long legacy of warriors and leaders who sacrificed freedom and life. It's a catalyst for current generation organizers and centers, the voice of those who represent our future. It is recognizing that our struggle is interconnected with the struggles of all oppressed peoples. It's a future where Black reparations and Indigenous land back coexist, where BIPOC collective liberation is at the core. It's acknowledging that only when Mother Earth is well can we, her children, be well. It is our belonging to the land because we are the land. We are land back. Casey will now deliver today's platform address on who knows what topic.
You may by this point have a sense of what topic, in fact. This past January, I was in a little pink house in Joshua Tree. I had been supposed to be in San Diego meeting with UU colleagues from around the country for our every other year Institute on the Learned Ministry, where we come together to learn things about how to do our jobs better. Unfortunately, the reality of the world at that time meant that meeting in person wasn't really a good idea, and so I pivoted quickly from a stay in a hotel in San Diego with friends to a stay in the desert, more or less alone. It was good, quiet, reflective time. I logged in to the Zoom-based activities with my colleagues and was surprised by how everybody introduced themselves. Here is the general pattern: name, pronoun, acknowledgement of indigenous territory on which you live. This was surprising to me because I felt that only 6 months earlier, when I had last been in a large collegial setting, we hadn't been doing all of that, and not nearly so consistently. I was surprised also because though people sometimes did not include the pronouns, always name and some acknowledgement of the land they were on. These acknowledgements varied pretty widely from on the historic land of tribe to on unceded territory. Sometimes just, on the land of the, quick Googling. I messaged my closest collegial friends and I said, when did we start doing this all the time? Absolutely everybody. I'm not mad about it, how did we get here? How did we get there? I still don't have an answer for that, but I know that I had gotten so used to that as a practice in various communities that I would visit among my colleagues and at the national level of Unitarian Universalism, that when I showed up here on my first Sunday before I began giving platforms, I noticed pretty starkly that we don't do that. And I thought, I wonder why. Now, I don't have an answer for that either. I assume that there is a reason, but as I thought about it, I thought, I'm actually increasingly uncomfortable with these land acknowledgments, these simple statements of whose land this used to be. A post on the internet recently illuminated this in a very clear way for me. An Indigenous academic went to a conference, and at the front of the conference, the main presenter acknowledged that they were on the stolen land of this particular man's people. And then he moved on. There was no further conversation about what it meant that they were on that land. There was no discussion of what it meant for them to make that acknowledgement. On this particular individual's way up to give his own presentation, he stole somebody's water bottle. He got to the front and he said, "I acknowledge that I stole this water bottle." You can't just say, "I acknowledge that I stole this," and then stop there. So often, when we are in this habit of reflexive land acknowledgement, we are just saying, "No, not me, I'm a good one." But we are not being good. What does it mean to say whose land this is? For many years, the past decade, as I've moved around the country, my own practice, whenever I get to a place, is to immediately figure out whose land I'm on. To seek out what community is there and see if I can make some kind of connection. This is not always particularly possible. If you move to Berkeley, there you will find many people connected with local indigenous tribes. You will find people still fighting for the release of American Indian movement activists. You will find connection pretty quickly. If you move then to Los Angeles, it will take slightly longer, but it will still be there. If you move to Washington, D.C., it will be rather more difficult. Washington, D.C., a city with less than 3,000 indigenous people in it. Washington, D.C., one of the first places to have its indigenous inhabitants removed. The Nunchak people, called Anacostions, made Piscataway, are not here to talk to us about what they need. So what's it like to develop relationships that mean something? To acknowledge whose land this is in a way that matters, that isn't just, "Not me, I'm a good one." What does it mean to connect when the history is so fraught and far enough back in time that it is even hard to reach into? Well, I have some thoughts. But before I get into those thoughts or any more about the Land Back movement, a quick overview of some indigenous history of activism. Now, it is clear, and the leaders of the Land Back movement make it explicit, that this movement is not new. I'm going to talk about things that happened in the 60s and 70s here in a minute, but it would be a mistake to pretend that indigenous activism began in the 1960s. Since the moment settlers arrived here, since people first began being pushed out of their lands, killed and sent to reservations, there have been people resisting. There have been organizations of indigenous people networking themselves together to resist this colonial project. And there's a framework of what we think of as activism that really only begins to be developed in the late 1950s. And moments of activist history that we can hold on to from the American Indian movement and other movements for indigenous liberation coming out of the broader liberatory moment of the 1960s and 70s. In 1969, activists from the American Indian movement began a 19-month occupation of Alcatraz Island. Alcatraz Island is a former prison in the middle of the San Francisco Bay. And on November 20th, 1969, a fleet of wooden sailboats, which held 90 people, landed on Alcatraz Island. And for the next 19 months, they stayed there, hoping to reclaim the rock, they said, in the name of all American Indians. In their proclamation, the activists stated that Alcatraz was more than suitable for an Indian reservation as determined by the white man's own standards, in that it, 1, is isolated from modern facilities and without adequate means of transportation. 2, has no fresh running water. 3, has inadequate sanitation facilities. 4, there are no oil or mineral rights. 5, there is no industry, so unemployment is very great. 6, there are no healthcare facilities. 7, soil is rocky and non-productive, and the land does not support game. 8, there are no educational facilities. 9, the population has always exceeded the land base. 10, the population has always been held as prisoners and kept dependent upon others. 11, no, that's it. The occupiers' list of demands included the return of Alcatraz to the indigenous people and sufficient funding to build, maintain, and operate a Native American cultural complex and a university. Today, Alcatraz Island and the prison that was once there are a tourist destination. There sure is running water and acceptable sanitation if you pay $70 to get on a boat and go there. None of that goes to the indigenous people. Quite a moment in history, less successful than we could have hoped for. In 1970, another group of activists occupied Mount Rushmore, and in 1972, a caravan across the country, the Trail of Broken Treaties caravan, arrived here in Washington, D.C. Also in 1972, the American Indian movement opened what they called survival schools. During this period of time, the common practice was to take Native children from their parents. This goes back a long way to the creation of reservations and schools which were meant to save the human and get rid of the Indian. These indigenous children were being taken from their families and put into foster care, put into a system that was already stressed, already not doing well at caring for the many children in it. The American Indian movement set up these survival schools to help teach Indigenous children their own worth, their value, their traditions, to help keep them connected to their communities, even if the state had taken them from their families. In 1973, activists occupied Wounded Knee, and in 1975, they took over Bonneville Power Administration in Portland, Oregon. In 1992, the National Coalition of Racism in Sports and Media was formed. And we all know how long it took for that to do anything. You here and me, as someone from Cleveland, are familiar with the kind of horrible and ridiculous fights that came from simply asking for the name of a sports team to not reflect a slur. I grew up around Cleveland in the 1990s when the Cleveland baseball team was really good for a minute. You take what you can get. I remember looking at those images of the Cleveland baseball team's former mascot as a child and thinking, this seems bad. And yet, when I go to Ohio now, even though the name has been changed to the Cleveland Guardians and the mascot was phased out years ago, you still see everywhere this intense racist caricature, Chief Wahoo. Here, I see that your problems have gone so far as to not even be able to rename your football team. The Washington football team remains the Washington football team, and it does not, I'm getting a head shake. Has a name happened? The Commanders, good job, yay! I am behind on my sports news. A person can only know so many things. But still, all over the city, I see cars that have very clearly, in the recent past, attached the former name and logo all over. I saw a van the other day with one sticker of that logo on each of its windows. And I wonder, what is the point of that? Okay, I don't wonder so much, I have some ideas. But in a place where there are already less than 3,000 Indigenous people, what kind of insecurity in your own self does it take to need to make that kind of statement? What kind of fragility might it require to take the changing of an insulting and not very creative sports team name as a personal offense? A project that began in 1992 and has so far had limited success. The National Coalition of Racism in Sports and Media forms. In 2011, the Keystone XL pipeline protesters launched a massive campaign. You might remember that one. And if you don't, you will almost certainly remember 2016's opposition to the Dakota Access Pipeline at Standing Rock. You will also maybe remember the intensity of the response. You may remember seeing hoses turned on people for perhaps the first time in decades. You may remember so many arrests that people were pretending to be there on Facebook so that they could obfuscate who was actually there. Whether or not that worked, I don't know, but it was a nice show of solidarity. Today, they are moving, right? We have this habit of acknowledging land, right? That is a pretty good problem to have. I might have difficulties with it and want us to move past it. We need to move past it. But it's nice to have a new problem. Some of you will know that all I want in life is new problems. That my greatest request to the search committee was that you all give me new problems on a regular basis. I don't want to have the same fight for years, but I'll have new fights with you, sure. So it's a good problem to have these land acknowledgements, and it's good to have Indigenous-run television shows like Reservation Dogs that get to tell real stories about the lives of people living on reservations, that are jobs for Indigenous writers and actors and creatives. But obviously, one show isn't enough. Raise your hand if you've heard of the Land Back movement before today. All right, cool. So, in reporting for KQED, Cheyenne Barefoot explains that Land Back is an Indigenous-led environmental, cultural, and political movement that seeks to place Indigenous land back in Indigenous hands. She writes that the concept for this movement began when colonizers first came into contact with Indigenous tribes over 500 years ago, and the tribes fiercely defended their sovereign right over their ancestral territories. However, Land Back as a movement with the power to mobilize not only different Indigenous communities, but non-Indigenous allies in the fight against environmental injustice, was catapulted into broader mainstream consciousness in recent years. Hashtag Land Back began trending on social media during the height of the No Dakota Access Pipeline protests in Standing Rock between 2016 and 2017, helping to highlight the struggles Indigenous communities were facing. In an interview with Ruth Hopkins for Teen Vogue, friends, by the way, Teen Vogue does some excellent reporting on social justice issues. If you have not been keeping up with Teen Vogue, and why would you? They have done some hard-hitting journalism in the past several years, and it is worth a look. So Ruth Hopkins interviewed Nick Tilson, president and CEO of the NDN Collective, and Crystal Tubols, director of the Land Back campaign for the NDN Collective. And they shared that the past few years have seen a spate of land reclamations by Native nations. In 2020, Chippewa National Forest was instructed to transfer 11,760 acres of Forest Service land to the Department of Interior to be held in trust for the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe, thanks to the Lake Leech Reservation Restoration Act. That same year, the Esalen tribe of Central California purchased about 2 square miles of their land back for just under $4.5 million. Can we just sit with those numbers for a second? 2 square miles, $4.5 million. This was assisted by Western Rivers Conservancy. In March of 2021, with a grant from conservation charities, the Passamaquoddy tribe raised $355,000 to purchase Pine Island in Maine, their ancestral land. The removal of dams in the Klamath River also is being praised as a land back victory for the Karuk and Yurok tribes. There has been some movement. Cheyenne Barefoot writes that although acquiring sovereignty over stolen lands is a key goal, Land Back seeks to heal and reclaim other things that are connected to land reclamation: language and ceremony, governmental sovereignty, food, housing security, equitable access to healthcare and education, all as part of a greater goal to dismantle white supremacy and uplift Black and Indigenous people of color and everyone. Tilson and Toobles were also quick to affirm that the Land Back movement isn't just for Indigenous people. Its mission and objectives serve the public good and could very well save the existence of life on Earth. Toobles said, if there's going to be any reparations or repair, healing, moving forward, justice, sovereignty, liberation, whatever the things are that we are working towards, it has to start with land back. It has to go back to the roots of what this so-called country was founded on, of what allows all of these institutions and systems that oppress us to exist. And that was when we were forced to be removed from our lands. So, to move forward, we have to reclaim our lands. Land back is for everyone. It impacts us all. In recent years, scientists have also gotten on board, started to affirm that land back is, in their scientific view, the best way forward. And some of this is because we notice that lands held by Indigenous people have even greater biodiversity than those held by the federal government. Our national parks are not as well cared for as Indigenous land is. Biodiversity, the creatures of this planet, our clean water, these are all things that are connected. I think it would be a mistake to believe that pre-colonial life was idyllic for everyone. There are not and have never been societies without problems. However, when so many of our social problems are built out of this strict hierarchy, colonialist mindset, when white supremacy undergirds basically every institution in our nation, land back is a step in the right direction. But what does that mean for us? What would it mean for us as a community to develop relationships with Indigenous people, to move towards land back as a philosophy, as a place of solidarity? I don't have all of the answers, but as I said, I have some ideas. A first step, and something I consider to be a first step to even doing a land acknowledgement, is to find some people to be in relationship with. As I mentioned, this is complicated in Washington, D.C. I cannot tell you how many emails and phone calls I have sent out into the world trying to find somebody who has time to have a conversation with me. However, I have a colleague in Unitarian Universalist land who stepped out of the ministerial fellowshipping process to lead what is called Indigenous-led unlearning conversations. So this is a group that gets together with communities like ours, brings Indigenous people who are fairly compensated to have conversations about building relationship, about Indigenous sovereignty, about healing our relationships with each other and the earth. There's my goal to work with other communities like ours in the area to bring these folks to us, to probably via Zoom because they live far away and airplanes are expensive and bad for the environment, have them join us for some conversation so we can get started in building relationships with Indigenous communities. Kia will also be our speaker next week. Surprise, I told you who it was going to be. She will be joining us via Zoom, available here in the hall. I don't know yet what she is going to speak about, but she will be doing a sort of preamble to the programming. These are concrete steps that we can take to develop our relationship and get to a point where, if we decided to do a land acknowledgement ceremony, to light a candle, to simply say whose land we live and work and play on, it would mean something more than, not me. It would mean a commitment to solidarity. It would mean a commitment to relationship. When I read through the land back materials, through the interviews with leaders of modern and historic movements for Indigenous liberation, I see above all a call to relationship with each other, to relationship especially with those who have been intentionally removed from our sight, to relationship with the earth and its creatures. Relationships can heal so much. So I ask you to come with me on a journey of building and deepening relationships, to move towards a commitment to all of us being truly, deeply free. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Casey. I learned a lot about something I knew very little about, and I don't think I'm speaking only for myself, so thank you very much. In a few minutes, we will have our community sharing time, when you can write in the chat or share in person about what resonated with you during this platform. While we listen to today's musical response, you might prepare by reflecting on a personal experience or an activity at West that the platform brings to mind.
but from the weak are furled the fearful ancient passions, strange and high. It is something to be wiser than the world, and something to be older than the sky. Lo, and blessed are our ears, for they have heard, and blessed are our eyes, for they have seen. Let the thunder break on human beast and bird, and lightning, it is something to have been. It is something to have been.
This is the time when we add our own voices to the morning, sharing our reflections on the platform and what resonates with our personal experience. For our online participants, I invite you to share in the Zoom chat or in the comments if you're watching the recording later. If you're here in person, you can come up to the microphone here on the floor, but please keep your comments brief so others may also share. I'll start by reading the initial Zoom comments first. Sonia says, thank you so much for this platform. I have also been concerned about the performative nature of land acknowledgements and really appreciate your thoughts on a more meaningful direction that we could take. Mark Meyer says, thank you, Casey, for teaching me and others about this problem. Cynthia Goodman says, such a beautiful song, so well performed, thank you. Let's take some comments from the hall. Shayla.
Good morning, I'm Shayla. This land back movement, it's so connected to so many things: environmentalism, capitalism, white supremacy, the use of fossil fuels for things like air travel and car travel, and it's so much of our lives is impacted, okay, let's give the land back to the Native Americans. Okay, some of them will probably continue, selling oil, and we could keep some of the cars and the planes, but it will be reduced. So it's very, very, very connected to a lot of things. And yeah, it's very complicated, but we should try.
Perry, he, him. Casey, thank you again for another thought-provoking platform. I confess that I don't really understand the scope of the land back movement. I think it seems pretty clear to me at least that we are not in a position to return the entire land mass of the United States to the original inhabitants or the descendants of those original inhabitants, because we have 300 million people we need to find places for. But I certainly understand and agree with you that the place for us as a community to start is by developing relationship. That's always been kind of the core ethical element as I've understood ethical culture. One other note, when you talked about the survival schools, it brought to mind an organization that I've been supporting for some years called the American Indian College Fund. And that's a network of tribal colleges and universities, and it provides scholarships so that people can attend them who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford to do so.
Hi, good morning. My name is Renee. I used to be a member of WES, and in 2014 I left to move to Anchorage, Alaska. Of the 570 plus federally recognized tribes, over 230 are in Alaska. It's a state where a relationship with the native indigenous communities is very, very important. And I certainly would be happy to talk with you about my experience having worked with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration prior to my retirement. I'm glad to be back here today, and I am very, very pleased to hear this conversation that you're having. I certainly wish and hope that others will be having that conversation. I think it's very, very important. I'm assuming you are talking with the Museum of the American Indian, but like I said, I certainly would be very happy to share my experience with you. Alaska is a much, much different state than the lower 48. But anyway, thank you very much.
I think it's so important that we engage on these questions of basic freedom and liberty. And while we want to look at this from the point of view of land back, we also need to acknowledge the role that white Europeans had in the loss of the lands. My own ancestors from Scotland were known as very tough, gritty men. This is pre-revolution. And William Penn was active in bringing these immigrants, the Scots, very mean kind of men, of course they weren't really, into Philadelphia. And then he promised them land, but they had to go out and take it away from the Indians. And William Penn had this bunch of pacifists who weren't going to do that. So they imported poor Europeans to come here and push the frontiers. Interesting, huh?
Well, thanks so much. A couple more comments before we move on. Ileana says, thank you, Casey. This was a great introduction to the land back movement. Coming from Montana with many indigenous peoples and feeling for the numerous challenges white people have put in their parts, I still struggle to find concrete ways to engage and be an ally. I look forward to the upcoming platform and hear ideas about ways to meaningfully get involved. Maceo says, Casey, thank you. The truth is no one wants to give back what they have had the privilege to receive. Someone I know and respect told me how he was going to his cabin in Minnesota. He then followed with, I know I should give it back. Privilege is something people will accept and do not want to give up. It's the thing that is not what people want to talk about and continues into reparations to black people and the slave labor that built this country. So those are the comments. Thank you all for those of you who shared your thoughts and your comments. Just as we share our perspectives in this community, so too do we share our resources and gifts. Here at WES, we split all undesignated gifts to the Sunday collection between our operating budget and a fund dedicated to justice and compassion. This month, we're sharing half of the offering with Brigada Solidaria del Oeste, in English, Solidarity Brigade of the West, a self-managed community initiative that supports grassroots efforts and collective community processes in Western Puerto Rico. The group was formed in 2017 to support families and communities in their recovery process after Hurricane Maria. Its mission is to promote the self-sustainable development of communities through diverse human resources in order to achieve social, food, economic, and cultural sovereignty. Let's all take a moment to prepare for the invitation to generosity. For those who are able to respond, we offer several options. As noted on the screen, the number to give by text is 202-335-1885, and you can donate online via tiny.cc/westgives, or by clicking on Give at ethicalsociety.org. You can place cash or a check in the basket at the back of the hall on your way out, and you can always send a check by mail. Thank you for your generosity. We will now receive your gifts and the gift of music, The Moondrops by Nathan Moore. Thank you so much to all the many people who helped create this morning's time together. Staff members Ndara Miles, Robin Kravitz, Maceo Thomas, and Tom Hutton. Interim music coordinator Leah Morris. Tech team members Pat McNeely and Joseph Vai. Slide artist John and Abby Dakin. Zoom usher Judy Myers. In-person greeter Shayla and Roberta. Virtual coffee, our host Joe London. At the conclusion of the platform, please join us for social hour in person around the foyer on the patio, or virtual coffee hour via Zoom. First, though, I want to mention a few things upcoming in the life of our community. The Earth Ethics Action Committee meets today at 1 by Zoom. So does the Biology Reading Group. I know we made this announcement last week, but it bears repeating. WES's Sunday Ethical Education for Kids, or SEEK program, will begin next month. There will be 3 cohorts, pre-K to 5th grade, 6th to 8th grade, and the high school teen group. Until more volunteers who don't have to be parents are recruited to allow the program to expand. So please, if you're interested, please do support this program by volunteering. If you want to play more of a role in the village that helps raise WES's young people, please email Ndara at ndaram@ethicalsociety.org. It's a great way to become involved in the community. And speaking of November, we're now just 4 weeks away from the WES auction on Saturday evening, November 5th. And Sarah is here to give us an update on the auction.
So most of you probably know, at the auction each year, we auction off, one of the items that we auction off is a pair of gorgeous, elegant, tasteful lamps. Don't laugh, they're right back there. Okay, the lucky winning bidder gets custody of the lamps to have them in their very own home for a year. But during the recent gap between auctions, the lamps took the opportunity to strike out on their own and see the world. They went to Paris, how romantic, and to the beach. Imagine getting the sand out of those feathers. And they went to Yellowstone, and they even got a hat. And skiing. I don't really know how that would work, but... And they went to Mardi Gras. They even have some beads on. So how fun. Wow, what a trip. But the lamps are back home now, and they're super excited to see who they get to live with next year. So please plan to attend the auction and participate in one of Wes's favorite traditions. I have 3 reminders about the auction. We still need your donations of items and events, especially events. So think about whether you could host a dinner or a brunch or a game night, or partner with somebody to co-host. If you want to host an event but you don't have space or you need a partner, let somebody on the auction team know and we can work with you. So please submit all your donation information by October 22nd via the online form on the auction website. Number 2, it's time to buy your tickets. So tickets are $25 per person for in-person attendees, all you can eat or drink. Eat and drink, sorry. It's not an either or. Or $10 for online attendees. And the first 40 people to buy tickets for in-person attendance and everyone who buys a ticket for the online event is entered into a raffle. We're going to have 4 different drawings. And when you buy your ticket, you'll receive your bidder number. And then finally, mark your calendar for the return of the bake sale and voting for the Golden Spoon winner. The sale and voting will be on October 30th, which is the same day as the West membership meeting, and the winner will be announced auction night. So thank you very much, and we'll see you at the auction.
As we all know, this is the funnest event in West. It's just terrific. Look forward to being there. Well, that's it for today's announcements. As always, you can find information about the opportunities to connect in Sunday Links or news and notes, and on the calendar page on Wes's website. Next week's platform will continue with the monthly theme of courage and the social justice theme on focus on Indigenous history. This is a call out to those who have been wanting to come in person. Yes, come in person, please, to the platform. We have like about 35 people here today, just exaggerating only slightly. But remember, we are no longer requesting advance reservations from anybody, so just come on in. As those of you who are here today already know, there's a brief check-in process at the door. Of course, we'll continue with the hybrid platforms, and attending can mean tuning in on Zoom as well. You're very welcome. We'll continue with the October practice of not announcing. Did Casey just announce it? I think she did. They did, sorry. Okay, so I'll skip that line. I know. Thank you all for being part of the platform today, and I invite you to join our closing song introduced by Leah Morris.
All the words we say don't mean a thing until we realize everything is changing. Have courage to rise with the raging sea. All I need to know, will you rise along with me? I'm always with you, it's where I wanna be. Can't you see? I'm always with you, you're always here with me. I've been changing, this you can't believe. Can't you see? I'm always with you, you're always here with me. I found what's missing, it took a while to see. I'm where I belong, I have everything I need. It's time to be the change that we want to see. And all I need to know is, will you change along with me? I'm always with you, it's where I wanna be. Can't you see? I'm always with you, you're always here with me. I've been changing, this you can't believe. Can't you see? I'm always with you, you're always here with me. I'm I'm always with you. It's where I wanna be. Can't you see? I'm always with you. You're always here with me. I've been changing, this you can believe. Can't you see? I'm always with you. You're always here with me.
Last few reminders before we leave. If you're new to our community, please send an email to our membership coordinator, Maceo Thomas. Once again, Maceo Thomas, M-A-C-E-O-T, at ethicalsociety.org, and introduce yourself. And to reach Virtual Coffee Hour, point your browser to tiny.cc/Wes Coffee Hour. And now I invite you to join me in our closing words for the month. Let us go into the week ahead with courage, care, and commitment to mutuality. Have I got it wrong?
Let us go into the week ahead with compassion, understanding, and commitment to mutuality, bringing our whole selves and honoring the fullness of one another in our quest for a better world.
Sorry about that. Again, thank you all for joining in today's platform. We look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you,